Hi everyone, it's Lori and welcome to the channel. So today I'm doing an edit along. So in the description of the video, you can actually download this image. This is an opportunity for you to try some of the techniques that I'm covering here editing in Lightroom. Now, if you use Lightroom Classic, you can follow along the same, just the menu is going to look a little bit different. All right, so let's jump in and get started. So this is going to be a little bit of a challenging image, but I'm hoping that the new remove tool is going to help me remove this branch that I caught. So I don't shoot a lot of birds or ducks or geese or any really wildlife, occasionally, but it's not my mode of choice. So don't judge me on the bird. I did not have a tripod. I was not out intentionally looking for birds, but I was in South Carolina in a nature area doing some walking and had my camera and came across this beautiful bird or duck, and decided to go ahead and photograph it. And I took several shots. I had a lot of them, but she started moving, or he started moving, was trying to get morning breakfast, and so it made it a little challenging. I also really wanted to capture a beautiful background, so you can see I was able to get this gorgeous reflection. So I thought we'd edit this one together. So to get started, first thing, I've got it in my 2025 images in my January file. So I have all of my images saved to that folder. And now I'm ready to get started with editing. So the first thing I'm going to do is definitely check the histogram. And of course, some of the highlights were blown out. So I like to always start with my light or basic panel. So I'm going to come down and just bring down those highlights just a little bit. Now, I really don't want to darken the image. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right off the bat with a brush. And so I'm going to come in with that brush and I'm just going to brush over these areas and the neck, because that will give a selective adjustment where I can move those highlights down and get those where they are not. We want to bring them down, but we definitely don't want to darken them. Okay, I think that's the sweet spot. So I'm at -22. There's a little right there on the neck. I could put the brush over that, but I think that works. And there's a little bit down here. I'm not going to print this image, so I'm not too worried about it being it's not super blown out. So that's where I am going to leave it. Okay, now let's go back to our basic. I'm going to open up the shadows. All right, and I think the next thing that I want to do is I need to remove this branch or stick or whatever was in the way, and in order to be able to edit the rest of the image. Now I think, look at this trash in the pond. Isn't that sad? So while we're using or at the remove tool, I'll also remove that. Quite a story, isn't it? This nature area and then all this plastic. It's really sad. If you are a nature photographer, I'm sure you run into this like I do. So let's start with this area. Let's remove that first and see what it does. I may have increased it too much. Now, I like to use the remove tool with the generative AI when I'm doing something pretty complicated. And I think it did a great job. It is showing the reflection, so be sure if you're editing with me to remove that reflection as well. So let's go ahead. I like to do it kind of one at a time so that I don't get ahead of myself. And there we go. Okay, so I don't think I see any other trash in the water. I know in some other images there was more, but if you spot more, you can let me know. All right, so now I'm going to work on this and I'm going to do it in sections. I encourage you not to try to do the whole thing at once. We're just going to go right around the beak and see how the AI does. We may have to do this a couple times, but we're going to give it a shot. So I'm just going to start there and see if it, okay, it didn't do too bad. I think now we can work with it. So I can miss the beak and do remove. Now, if you use a program like Topaz to enhance your nature images, you may want to take this in to enhance the bird. I, of course, I didn't have a tripod. I'm walking, standing, and, it's not completely sharp. I'm not sure why my computer moved, but we are going to just slowly work on this in using the remove tool. If you do too much at one time, especially when it shifts, I find that it just does not do a good job. So that's why I'm taking it slow. So I'm just going to continue to work on this cleanup, and I will fast forward this for you, and then we'll get started on the rest of our edit. Okay, so I was able to get that remove cleaned up. I hope you were as well. Now there's some other areas like this branch, which if you wanted to, you could also try to remove that. Anything that you find distracting in the image, you could remove. I do want to keep it natural. This is what it looks like. This is the natural environment. But if it's something in your image that is super distracting, I think that one was, then I definitely would remove it. All right, so now I think what I want to do is I'm going to come down and I want to add a vignette. So I want to really darken those areas. Now it is going to give you, it's going to clip those. And so all you have to do is raise your tone curve up just a little bit. So we can still add that vignette, darken those edges, but it's not going to have them all kind of clipped and crunched up. So it's going to leave the texture. Now I'm kind of jumping around on this image because it has so much going on. Let's minimize the tone curve, and I want to actually work with what I normally do as my step 2, which is the tone and temperature. So I'm going to play with the white balance. That's adding a little bit more golden. And I think I like that. This was early morning. The light was streaming in and shining right here, which was really nice. Now, as far as my crop, let's go and look at the crop. So I could move this to where she or he is right here in the center. I could also bring it over. Let's unlock it though. And I am going to reset it. I could move it over so that it's on the rule of thirds, but I don't like I like this side of the image better. So let me try. I could also crop it kind of tight. I may just go with center. So you decide what you're going to crop it. Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious what you decide. Let's try that. And I think it does tell the full story. And also, I don't want to crop too much of this because this is the direction that it's facing. Now I could flip the image, but I'm going to keep it as it was shot. So for temperature, again, I'm going to increase, and I'm actually going to give it a little bit touch of green and leave the temperature. Now let me make sure my screen's a little bright, so let me bring that down. All right, there's some golden light up here. I think now what I want to do is go down to color, and I'm actually going to desaturate the greens just a little bit. I'm going to desaturate the orange because this orange of the pine straws is a little distracting, I think. Now, we're going to jump around again and go up to our tone curve. And here is where I think I want to brighten the whites. Yeah, I'm just going to pop those. So we could leave it and actually just go and do a mask, So we could create a new mask and we could do our subject. Let's see if it selects our bird here. And it did a pretty good job. I think we do need to subtract that area. So let me do show overlay. I'm going to do subtract brush. And I'm going to subtract. So I don't know if yours did this, but, and I want to make sure my flow is all the way up. I don't need it to feather on this brush. Okay, so I think that's got it. All right, so now we are going to, I'm going to remove the overlay and I want to just enhance the whites. And you can see what it's going to do to our highlights. We can just bring those down a little bit. I'm not worried about it being too clipped, so just a little bit is okay. But I do want, so sometimes the tone curve will work better. Yeah, I just want to brighten our little bird a little bit. And I am going to come down and increase the texture. Now, if you add clarity, it's going to darken it. So I do not like to add clarity and I don't want to dehaze it. I just want to add a little texture. And so let's look at before and after for our bird. And there's the after. I think it's much, much better. Let's come in. Now we had gotten rid of these highlights, so I know that can, you get rid of them and then you add them back. I do like that though, elevated. There you go. If you just bring your whites down a little bit, over here at the very tippy top, it will unpop that. And then I don't think I need that quite as white, but just a little bit. So just play with your tone curve. If you don't like the tone curve, you can also play with it here, but I encourage you to try the tone curve. It really works nice. Now, if you want now to add another mask, a lot of people like to add brightness to the eye. So we're just going to give it a little pop of exposure. There we go. Let's see that before and after. Before and after we got rid of that water bottle. We've done a lot of good stuff to this image. So let me zoom out. Let's get back to our basic, move the image back around. And I'm really liking it. I think I want to open up the blacks a little bit. Now at this point you could be finished. Again, you could also take it into a tool like Topaz to really bring out the detail. You could crop it even tighter if you wanted to. You could also blur your background. So you could do that in Lightroom or Photoshop. I'm also going to reduce the noise. And if you want to do lens blur, we could try it. We could apply that. I don't remember what I was shooting this at, but let's go ahead and apply the lens blur just to see what it does. I did have some blur here. I was using a 70-300 lens. I'll give you the stats on the image in just a second. But sometimes in these nature images where it's very distracting, it can be fun to add a little blur, especially if you prefer a more artistic image. Now I think that looks fake. So let's just bring it down just a little bit. And maybe even a little more. Yeah, that's not bad. Now, if you want to customize it, you can do refinement. So I'm going to click focus. I'm going to grab my brush size and make it smaller. Let's bring that brush size down. All right, and I'm going to bring back the focus, which was right here around our bird. So it's almost like we're creating a gradient blur, which I probably would take it into Photoshop to do. Let's see. Yeah, that's just, I think doing a blur in Photoshop would probably be a lot better for this image if you want to kind of soften and blur the background. So I'm not loving the way that it's doing it. I think the blur in Lightroom is good for images where you know you want most of it blurred, but I don't think in this case that I really love it. So I'm going to get rid of it, and we'll just turn that off, and we'll let it go back to our regular image. All right, so I think that's going to do it for me for this image. I'm pretty happy with it. I could play around with it in Photoshop if I wanted to, but I just wanted to walk you through doing some easy edits and some difficult remove, but using that remove tool, the AI generative remove tool, really makes a big impact. So if you didn't do your Lightroom updates from last October, be sure you've processed those, because that's going to give you that fantastic remove tool. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that lens blur. We'll get that out of here, and I'll show you the final image. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this edit along. Leave me some notes and comments, and I'll see you in the next video.